Welcome back, everyone. It's just another day in the life as a military wife, and I'm going to recap a little bit about what we talked about with the special project I'm working on. Last week, I spoke about it, and then also some things that took place in the news last week that I think might be interesting to, review. So, there's a lot going on, and we'll be unpacking it. I'm your host, Sam Wolf, and this is Life of a Military Wife. So, as always, life in a military family is unpredictable, and yeah, life is just crazy sometimes. So, it is approaching PCS season, and I think I've talked about PCS, a permanent change of station, a couple times. This is our family's wonderful year to have a PCS. So, in addition to working on the project I'm doing with Maria Strange next week, which is that class, the virtual class about time management and goal setting. By the way, there are still some openings left. If you are interested, please um, get on my Facebook page or go to Maria Strange Coaching and sign up. We'd love to have you. But anyway, doing that class next week, doing podcast, kids are in school, cold and flu season kicking, so kids are also sometimes homesick, which is what happened recently. And then we're trying to move, and so life is just a little interesting. And one thing I've been doing is trying to just each day pick one area to just declutter in preparation for the move. Because somehow, I don't know how, you just belongings multiply like rabbits. Um, I don't understand how we get so much stuff, but we do. We acquire a whole lot of stuff in between moves. And moving is actually a great time to just let things go. So that's what I've been trying to do a little bit, little by little bit, on top of keeping all the other projects I work on it up in the air. Also, I'm looking into a couple more collaborations. So if you are interested in the class, please, please, please get on the Facebook. There's a link on the Facebook. Register. We'd love to have you. It's 3 days, and we are going to be covering slightly different stuff than we covered in the spring. And I'm really excited about it. Last time we geared a lot of what we did more towards military families. This time it's general life skill, like, skills for anyone. So again, yeah, I feel like I'm might be repeating myself on that one. But also, because of the announcement last week, I did not get a chance to cover some interesting things that popped up in the news. And so I want to kind of cover those a little bit today. And the first thing that happened was the Iraqi Prime Minister, um, the presidential palace. Sorry, yeah, that's what it is. Make sure I'm saying things right. The Iraq's presidential palace was breached. Evidently, most of the people who breached the palace, the protesters, ended up leaving. Some ended up swimming in the pool before they left, but anyway, the unrest was based on, or the protests and the unrest was due to the resignation of one of the influential members, anyway, um, of the government. And they're getting things under control. For a while there was reports and rumors that they were evacuating the embassy. This is because there was a what appeared to be U.S. military helicopter on top of a building in that area. However, they've said that they did not evacuate the embassy and that they're urging everyone to abstain from violence and to resolve any political differences through peaceful processes. and guided by their constitution. That was the US State Department's encouragement. So as of right now, it's kind of up in the air. There's stuff going down in Iraq. So that's always something to keep an eye on just because we still have troops on the ground there. We still have quite a few US contractors, DoD contractors, civilians, expats, people with the embassy. Just we have there's quite a few Americans there. So anytime there's a lot of US citizens and things get a little unstable, it's worth paying attention to. Iraq's prime minister did reportedly evacuate as a safety precaution. So we'll just have to see where that goes and what happens. Again, there's not been a whole lot of updates on that since then. Another thing that has been in the news and kind of interesting is that Taiwan is kind of starting to be really proactive. Another U.S. Representative, legislator, went to visit or is planning a visit. Now I can't remember. But Taiwan said that they've been tracking drones, that they're going to, if China really does breach their war space, they do plan on defending themselves. The U.S. has discussed possibly sending a ship, some U.S. naval vessels through the strait. I'm not sure where that stands right now. But the thing that really caught my attention is that a Taiwanese billionaire has vowed to raise 3.3 million man army to defend Taiwan. He has basically committed to helping fund most of his country's defense, basically to make his country competitive. And part of his reasoning is because he feels that they need to be able to protect themselves. That China is known for its brutality and its mistreatment. Okay, I think here's the exact statement. I don't want to misquote him. Given the Chinese Communist Party's record of atrocities against its own people and its brutal domination, haha, see, sorry, it's a little late right now. Its brutal domination of those like the Uyghurs who are not even Chinese, the CCP threats have only ignited among the Taiwanese people a bitter hatred against this threatening enemy and a shared determination to resist. Sorry for the little brain hiccup. I promise I can read. But basically, he is decided that his goal is to help make sure that his country is able to defend themselves. And I think this is really admirable of Taiwan. Um, as their allies and considering our agreements that we have with Taiwan, I would like to say that I hope that they can rely on us and count on us, that they won't be alone. But at the same time, as we've seen with the situation in Ukraine, with the situation in Afghanistan, with the situation in a lot of different countries, the US may or may not be there when you need us, sadly. As a US military spouse, I wish we could always be everywhere to help everyone. But the military doesn't always choose where we go and when. And also, the Ukrainians, they were not going to go quietly. They have been putting up quite a fight. Um, I pray that they are successful in defending their country. But it has not been an easy fight. And whereas without our support, the Afghan military and government did not survive. And that is a huge tragedy. And well, you all know how I feel about that one. Anyway, now it's pointed out in the article that I'm referring to that the United States has agreed to sell 1.1 billion worth of weapons and defense equipment to Taiwan, including radar systems to track incoming strikes and anti-ship and anti-air missiles. So hopefully between the promises we've made to give them supplies and technology and their desire to actually train their civilians to defend themselves, they will be able to protect themselves. So, those are two of the things that had caught my eye over this last week. And sorry about that. That was my dog. Sometimes she gets yappy. Anyway, but those were some things that had really caught my attention considering everything that has been going on. Um, and also another thing that came up recently is the situation with Russia. Russia has now cut off Europe from its pipelines, and there was already an energy crisis in Europe, and it's only going to get worse considering winter is settling in. So there's a lot going on internationally, and there's a lot going on nationally. But I feel like there are times when we get so wrapped up in our problems as Americans that we forget that there are other things going on in the world that can and will affect us if we don't pay attention. Like, anyway, I was listening to something earlier and it was pointed out that one of the biggest deterrents the United States has always had is our military and economic strength, but it's also been our involvement. And the less involved we are, the more we leave a vacuum for other people to step in. And that's fine, but we don't control what other people do. So that might seem self centered, but you know what? For the sake and safety of our country, yeah, we do have a vested interest in what goes on in the world. So, considering the fact that now Europe is facing an energy crisis and approaching winter, it's worrisome. And unfortunately, the United States is no longer a net exporter of oil. So we don't have the ability to help them like we did even just 4 years ago. And we are importing. We no longer even have enough for to meet our own needs. So it's amazing how things can change very, very quickly on a world stage. Um, and just to think how much has changed in such a short time between Afghanistan and Ukraine and situation in Taiwan with China and the energy crisis and the food shortages and the economy. And some of it has got to do with the fact that the world is trying to work its way out of a pandemic, but not all of it does. And if we really want to see change, we're going to need to be positively involved in making a good change happen. It's also interesting to say that Britain now has a new prime minister. It's still the Conservative Party is still in power. When their elections come, it will be interesting to see if the Conservative Party can remain in power, considering all of the conflict and issues that the Boris Yeltsin government had. And according to the research I heard recently, that based on polling data, if the election was held today, they probably wouldn't. So we'll have to see. We'll have to see. We'll have to see how inflation goes. We'll have to see how a lot of these things go. And really, that's just kind of where life is right now. And so that's kind of going back to a little bit about what I started talking about. There is a lot on everyone's minds. There is a lot on everyone's plates. We're all very busy people. Um, and some of the best ways to handle things is just one bit at a time. and also setting those priorities. With the move, with everything I've got going on my plate, I can't just deep clean and pack up my whole house in a day. That's not going to happen. It's not realistic. I still have to be able to make meals, get my kids out the door, whatnot. But I can go through a stack of papers and figure out what we can get rid of and what I need to file away as important. I can organize a bookshelf and find books that need to be repaired or damaged or we have duplicates of, which does happen, oddly enough. I'm not sure how. At one point, I think we had 3 copies of The Little Engine That Could. Not going to complain. Great book. Love it. But it was just a little strange. Actually, I think we even had 4. We've got like 2 copies of Polar Express. Anyway, maybe it's just train books. I digress. But whatever it is, whatever you have on your plate, instead of going whole hog and just letting it completely take over your life, try to break it down into manageable sections and just do a little bit every day. And honestly, that is something I have seen in a lot of different techniques. There is a YouTuber who I love, who tries a bunch of different like cleaning and house organization techniques to see which ones are most effective. And I think my favorite one that she did is the 5-minute timer. Set a 5-minute timer, find a project that you've been putting off, work on that project for 5 minutes. Maybe it's a 10-minute or 15-minute timer based on what the project is. But set a timer, work on that project and just 100% focused, work on that project for that amount of time. When the timer goes off, walk away, let it go. Whatever state it's in, leave it. And then come back. Maybe you do that twice a day. Maybe you do it once a day. But you will be more motivated to tackle those things when you don't burn yourself out on them. So, and that's honestly how I feel a lot about a lot of these things. There's a lot of information for us to process. There's a lot of things. I feel like just trying to be an informed voter could be a full-time job. Just trying to be a parent is a full-time job. Just trying to be involved in your community can be a full-time job. And so the way you work it all out is by taking everything little by little, step by step, and figuring and making those big projects or those big goals smaller. So hopefully that's helpful for you all. And I most likely will not be putting out a podcast next week due to doing the class. And would like I said before, would love to have you participate in the class. I really enjoy being able to interact directly and answer questions directly. So I hope to see you there. You've been listening to Life of a Military Wife, and I am your host, Sam Wolf.